Bruce Lee was a boxing fan, and he really liked boxing. And at that time, if you can remember that far, people were just doing karate, so it was point karate. And he didn't like that. He thought he enjoyed boxing matches better than karate matches at that time because it was point, and it would just take your point and then go back to the corner and then take the point. And he wanted something to flow. So what he did was, because he liked boxing so much, and as you know, Bruce Lee was the boxing champion, high school boxing champion in Hong Kong. He put in the boxing movements of Western boxing, took the kicks from different Chinese systems and both Southern and Northern systems, and he started to play around with it. In the beginning, we wore a lot of armor, like we wore baseball shin guards, we wore body protector, we wore face masks, we wore elbow pads, we wore boxing gloves. We experimented with boxing gloves, finger gloves, and nobody was doing it at that time period. The only people that were doing in the United States at that time period would probably be Bando. Bando is a Burmese, Indian, Chinese, and Tibetan martial art. And the JKD people and Bando people at that time were the only one that were doing full contact karate. And this is how it evolved, And then later on, we started taking away the shin guards, we started taking away the body protector, we started taking away the face mask, and then all we used was the boxing headgear, and that became kickboxing. At first, I coined the term Chinese kickboxing. He says, no, just call it Chinese boxing, because Chinese boxing is what he wanted to be called. And then later on, we start using the word Chinese kickboxing, and then kickboxing, or Junfan kickboxing. In the development of Junfan kickboxing, Bruce, he researched a lot of different systems at that time, the known systems at that time. He would observe them. And the thing he liked about the Muay Thai was the rear leg power. He felt, though, that the front leg wasn't active enough at that time period. You have to look at the time period that he was in and why he made these things. A lot of it came from Don Draeger's book. I don't know if you're aware of Don Draeger's book, And he classified the Thais as saying, well, the uppercut is non-existent. Of course, that's where Bruce Lee did his research. And at that time, a lot of Thais didn't uppercut. And the reason why they don't uppercut is because the knee is in the same range. So the knee took care of the uppercut. He says, but he liked the elbows of the Thais. He said, well, that's a powerful tool. He didn't, in Don Draeger's book, he mentions about the jab was not seen very much, almost non-existent, okay? And that's the reason why, because they foot jab with their foot. So you have to look at why he came to this thinking at that time period. They said the hook was almost non-existent, and the reason why, on the tight hook, the Thais use the elbow, because the elbow is in range, in tight. They don't have to use the overhead, because the tight hook is in the same range as the elbow, and the elbow will cut the face up more. And it's more punishing than sometimes the left hook. And the kick, he referred to the Thai boxers as the John L. Sullivan with the leg. Now, all this is true depending who you're watching at that time. But if you look at the Thai boxer now, they jab, they cross, they have good hands, supplemented with devastating knees, devastating elbows, devastating kicks. So what he was looking at and observing from and taking his research from is what Don Draeger was saying and what he had seen. He felt that they weren't alive, that there was no broken rhythm. But that was true, may have been true maybe in the 60s and in the 70s, but it's not true here in the year, by coming in 1980, 1990, 2000, because things evolve. The other thing he took from was Savat. Now, many other writings and many other literature said he did not take from Savat, but I know different, because I was there when he researched it. I was there when he actually kicked and looked at the Super 8 of French fighters. There was a French, I don't know where he even got the tape, there was a French champion on Savat, and he was watching it on Super 8 and 8mm film, and he analyzed it, and he said, oh, I like this. This is a very punishing kick. coup de ba, which is the kick when they lift up, you know. He says, this is really good. And he liked the way they use their legs, because he said, Savat people, or boxers won't say Savat, they box with the feet. And that's what he liked. And he liked boxing. So he started to put all these elements together. And then he took the kicks he thought from northern system and from southern Chinese systems to see how they work. And that became Junfan kickboxing. It fit him. For us, we might have to find another path, but for Bruce Lee, that was the path he chose. Elements of Thai boxing, elements of Savat, and he liked the headbutts of the Burmese boxers. So he incorporated that into his own personal system. And I don't care what anybody writes about in all the books and all the magazines, he did have those elements in it. Many people don't know. They said, well, he only took it mainly from Wing Chun, which is at that point, had a strong Wing Chun background. But in the kick ranging, he says you don't use that kind of punching. You have to use attack by combination, what he called ABC. Junfan is the base system. It has curriculum in it. It has a definite pattern. Jeet Kune Do really is it stems off of Junfan Kung Fu. He wanted you to have the base in Junfan Kung Fu. And Jeet Kune Do was really Bruce Lee's personal system. And as I tell people before, it can be taught, but you would be losing it if you started to standardize it, because everyone is individual. Things that Bruce Lee did, and this is what people don't realize, what he did, a lot of people can't do. Like, he could really shell-shock a person with his lead jab. A lot of people can't now. We could score with that. We could put the guy off balance with it. We might even hurt him, but we can't take a man out. He had tremendous power, and we don't have that, you know. He had speed that it flabbergasted me. You know, I was a conference champion in my college, and he used to catch me like I was just in slow motion. It was like a bad dream. I've never met anybody explosive as him. I've never met anybody as fast as him. And there will be people that will surpass him maybe in speed, but maybe in totality, probably not. Because he's a rare individual, and probably when God made him, he threw them all away. Intelligent. A lot of fighters not intelligent. They're just gutsy. But he was gutsy, you know. He knew the direction in which he wanted to do it purposely. He just knew the direction when he was creating this. And it was created for him. But Junfan Kung Fu, we have to learn how to take the system and make it for ourselves. When Bruce Lee was organizing the kickboxing, he didn't really call it kickboxing in the beginning. But he says, we're going to learn a kick, and our kicking is going to be like a boxer. At that time, he felt that a lot of systems, they slugged with the foot. He says, you want to fence with your foot. You want to box with your feet like a boxer. You don't want to use it. So almost 80% of his strikes were with the front leg and the front hand. Because he felt if you were right-handed, that's your most powerful punch. If you're right leg, that's most powerful kick. And since the left hand was weaker, he would put the left hand back for more power. And because in boxing he analyzed it that the jab scored so frequently but could not put the person out of commission. It just added up a lot of points. So that's why he put the left hand back for more power, and he felt if you put the strongest hand forward at that time, okay, whether you're right-handed or left-handed, then it's going to be more powerful. And for him it worked beautifully because he had the power. He worked on it. His 3-inch punch was phenomenal. Very few people, pound for pound, I think he punches. He's like the hardest puncher you would ever meet. You know, he's like a miniature Marciano. You might look at his boxing form and you'll say, well, that's not maybe the most polished boxing form you see. He would be like a Marciano, a miniature Marciano or a miniature Frazier, you know. And although he admired Muhammad Ali because he liked the left hand to score frequently. That's why sometimes he would drop his lead. Sometimes people say, no, he's dropping his, we're talking about Muhammad Ali, he dropped his lead. And that's what Bruce Lee did. He dropped his right lead because he said the jab coming up is hard to see. And This is some of the reason why he developed it. And his kicking was like fencing and boxing. He wanted to score frequently, make it very, very sophisticated. And Bruce Lee drew from Western sources. Don't let anyone fool you. It has a Chinese name, but he drew from both East and West. And I know this. Although people say in writing, and I don't care how many books are written, they weren't there. They don't know. And that's all I'm going to say about it. You know, when we first started off in the trapping, that was emphasized. Like when I started with him in 1964, I started with him right after the first International Karate Championships that Ed Parker threw. And I was a student and a black belt under Ed Parker. I was so fascinated with Bruce Lee. And at that time he stressed a lot of hand trapping, which comes from Wing Chun. And as the years evolve, instead of coming off of a Wing Chun structure, before I used to do a Wing Chun structure and then go into a boxing structure. But as the years evolved, he took the trapping that came off of a kickboxing mode. In other words, the kickboxing mode would be like almost, I would say, savant, kind of a mixture between savant and Muay Thai and Northern Chinese systems of kicking with Western boxing. That was the mode. And the trapping came off that. It wasn't that the Wing Chun trapping was bad, like the straight blast was good, the trapping was good. It's that he knew there was a time and a place to trap. If you have room, you can do the kickboxing. When you're in tight, he felt the trapping was good, and he was very good. And he was very good at what I call first motion. One trap, one hit, he could put you away. Many times I've seen I think I'm safe in saying I've been knocked down by Bruce Lee more than any human being on earth. And I know that he could shell shock your body with one shot, one trap, either to the body, to the solar plexus, because he liked me. Of course, he didn't shell shock my face as much, but it was to the body. And when he hit the body, he could knock the wind off. He had that much power, and he had the short-range trapping. But that was mixed with Western boxing. In other words, he would come in, trap, go into sort of like Wing Chun hands, and then come out with Western boxing hands, or come out into a single leg tackle, or a double leg tackle, or a leg pickup, or go to the rear and dump you. In the trapping of Bruce Lee, in the beginning, as I said before, it was mainly Wing Chun trapping. He got out of that a little bit. He used to trap, and he would straight blast, and after he would straight blast, he would go to things like overarm hook, underarm hook, body tackle, which is a form of trapping. If you control the shoulder, you control the elbow, that is a form of trapping. So what he did was mix that with the Wing Chun trapping. Probably a person who grapples will look at it and say, well, no, they might not understand the Wing Chun portion. A Wing Chun portion would probably not understand why he would go into trapping the arms, trapping the elbow, trapping the head, trapping the body, trapping the legs, okay? What he called hand immobilizing tag, HIA. Then there was FIA, foot or leg immobilizing. Because you can grab, you can control the body. A good wrestler will trap the body. He is being trapped on the ground or in the standing position. You can trap and hold. So he liked to go between the Wing Chun trapping, and he would go into other areas that he had learned from Western wrestling that he researched, and from maybe observing Sambo. We don't know exactly, and I myself, to be really honest, I don't know how he integrated it. But I know that it wasn't the regular Wing Chun, because when I went back and studied with other Wing Chun people, and that's a great style, Wing Chun. It is a great style. But there's a time and place. Silat, I know his involvement, because he was the first one who bought me all my Silat books. We used to go to a bookstore, and he said, buy that book, that book. He had a great fascination for learning different arts. And with Silat, he felt a person in Silat was a tremendous condition. He was a well-conditioned athlete to go through their forms, what they call Kenbang or Juros, both the fighting forms and the what we call the artistic forms. He knew that the people, and many people say that he never researched that particular art, but I say he did. How much, I don't know. But I know that he did research it. Wing Chun, as I told you before, it's a great system. And Bruce Lee, really, many people don't know this, and many people do, he didn't really complete the Wing Chun. Like the dummy, he was only up to section number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's why when I learn it, I only learn it up to section 7. So he created his own move. He freelanced on the dummy. It's not completed. But as a great fighter, he was a great fighter. And he used elements of the Wing Chun. I have an instructor named Sifu Hawkins Chung, who's my Wing Chun instructor. And he said something to me that I thought was very interesting. He said, the first generation of people of Viet Minh were fighters. The second generation were technicians. And the third generation, he felt, they lived off the reputation of the first generation and the second generation. He told me that Bruce Lee's second and third and fourth hand, he could never tell if it was efficient enough. He says, but he knew Bruce Lee's first hand and first motion would blow people away. Therefore, no one knew what his level was on the second and third hand or the exchange. And I think that's a good thing, because as I remember, Bruce Lee would blow away people on the first strike and on the first hit, which made a difference. I'm sure you can find a lot of great Wing Chun people out there, and as far as knowing the system of Wing Chun, they probably excel over Bruce Lee, you know. But what he did was take the essence of Wing Chun and make it work for you. That's what he says, take the essence. Because some people, let's use it this way so you can understand it, okay? Some people do not have a BA degree. They do not have a BS degree. They do not have a master's degree, MA, MS. They don't have a doctorate degree. But even though they don't have the title sometimes of an educated man, they are highly educated. People say, well, he only has a master's, only has a bachelor's. But because if he studied, there's so much studying, they have the same caliber of a guy that has a PhD. They just didn't have the time to have a university or a college recognize the level he was at. Bruce Lee was that type of a martial artist. He's at what I call a PhD level in understanding it. But maybe sometimes, in other words, for me, sometimes you don't have to be a 10th and a 9th or an 8th or a 7th degree in a particular style or system. You know, maybe you're just a first, but you haven't been recognized, or you didn't go through the system to attain that recognition. And Bruce Lee, because he was evolving, constantly evolving, many people from many different systems, black belt and other systems, studied with him or wanted to study with him. Some didn't want to study with him because, you know, it might jeopardize their reputation. They didn't want people to know. Others didn't want to do it because they wanted to, but they were embarrassed to train under a person that possibly does not hold rank in any system. Yet you find all these people with ranking following this man, 5th, 6th degree, who befriended him because they knew he had the talent. They knew that he had the knowledge.
Well, I'll say it the Chinese way. 多謝晒. Thank you very much.